A woman named Pam Botcher was named along with Ruby Franke as Connections team members. On the day of Jody and Ruby's arrests, the two outstanding Franke children were found in Pam Botcher's care in American Fork. Coming full circle here, Ruby's niece, Jessie Hildebrandt, told me in an interview almost a month ago that Pam was one of Jody's friends and was always around the house when Jody lived in Utah County.
He was Jody's best friend. She wasn't actually involved, but she was one of the people that was constantly surveilling, the surveillance of reporting back to Jody, wondering why she's not being, why they're not talking about her.
This is a real coming full circle moment where we're going to be following on from what we were talking about yesterday in yesterday's revelations, whereby we were talking about how Kevin Franke was actually going to try and press charges against his daughter Sherry Franke for going into the family home and retrieving some items for Kevin's kids, for her siblings. He didn't like that. He's also threatening to sue the police. I will leave that video linked up here if you want to go check that out. That was really quite shocking. But today we're going to be talking, following on from Pam Botcher, and the fact that she was listed as the president of the Connections classroom. We also learned that the two other children were found at her residence, and no one really knew anything about her. Now, little did we all know that this wasn't just some random person who, was a part of the company, who donated a lot of money to get it going, anything like that, which is kind of what I originally thought. No, this lady actually has deep connection, if you catch my drift, with Jody Hildebrandt. They actually go way back. They are actually very good friends, and they've been very good friends for a little while. And the reason why we now know this is because Jessie Hildebrandt, who is Jody Hildebrandt's niece, who was deeply, horrifically abused by Jody Hildebrandt. I urge anyone to go and watch that. We're talking about it on the Mormon Stories podcast. Absolutely horrific levels of abuse at the hands of Jody. Well, turns out that Jessie knows exactly who this is. Pam was one of the people, if not the main person, who was basically keeping an eye on Jessie the whole time to make sure that she was keeping in line.
Things got progressively worse and worse and worse because I wasn't getting better. She would say, "I'm trying to make you so physically uncomfortable that it forces the sin out."
Knew the levels of abuse that was going on, and I find this absolutely sickening, although I'm not very surprised, because I think anyone that aligns themselves with Jody and Ruby in this capacity has got to have the same mindset when it comes to treating children. But this is what Jessie actually had to say.
Sure. When I was living with Jody, Pam Botcher was around. She was Jody's best friend. And I didn't realize that she was connected in this. I mean, I have very strong feelings towards Pam because of not that she was directly applying abuse, she wasn't actually involved, but she was one of the people that was constantly surveilling, the surveillance of reporting back to Jody. She was always at the house just because she was friends with Jody, so it's sometimes a little murky. But wow, that's very disappointing, and I'm wondering why she's not being, why they're not talking about her.
Now, when Jessie talks about being on surveillance, being watched all the time, they really do mean it like that. They were watched constantly by Jody. They were not allowed to leave the house. They were not allowed to go to school. They were not allowed to do anything. Jody shaved their hair off. Jody made them sleep outside in the snow, made them run up hills to repent. Really quite horrible levels of abuse. Once again, being duct taped around the mouth. Really painful interview to watch. But they're saying that this Pam lady was basically watching them and knew all about this. So I 110% what Jessie's saying. Why isn't Pam being questioned about this? Because Pam, at this point, someone needs to do something. Someone needs to look into this further. And because this information is now coming out, I have a feeling that Pam is going to be questioned. And I'd say from an outsider's perspective, after hearing what Jessie had to say as well, guilty by association, being complicit with the abuse. If they have already witnessed it towards Jessie, then they were going to have witnessed it towards the Frankie children, and that is just my own personal opinion, but I think someone needs to investigate this further. Now, on the day that the officers went round to Pam's house to retrieve the additional 2 children, Pam actually had some things very, I'd say, interesting / extremely suspicious things to say about the relationship that she had with the kids. She said that she has had the kids over to do housework and other chores for her before. I'm not sure on the regularity of that, which already set off huge red flags, because if we look here, the neighbours reported to officers that they had actually witnessed, outside of Jodie Hildebrandt's residence and Ruby Frankie's residence, as it states in this article right here, that they used to see the young children pulling up weeds at scorching temperatures outside in the heat. And this didn't just happen once, it's happened a couple of times. And like I say, at Jodie's and Ruby's. Why are these children just being sent around to do yard work and to look after people? Is this like a form of punishment? This seems absolutely mad to me, how these 3 women who are in charge of connections are just passing around these children to do yard work, literally putting them to work. Am I thinking that this is utterly bizarre? I maybe wouldn't find it quite so suspicious if we hadn't have seen the reports from neighbours, and then also the fact that, Pam is quite literally tied in with Jodie and that they probably think quite alike. I wouldn't think of it as being that strange. Yes, kids can go around and help out, get some pocket money, but it's not going to be like that, is it? I really do think that this is a massive red flag. I really honestly do. Like, are those kids being punished by doing yard work in those conditions? Obviously they are, because who the hell would do that? Like, who would do that to small children? But the fact that this is all that Pam could really say about their relationship really sets off some red flags for me. So this article is based on exactly what happened on the day that they went to retrieve the 2 additional children. And it says, according to a Springville police officer, August 30th, officers responded to Frankie's Springville home to try and locate the 2 children still unaccounted for. So they'd already found the 2 at Jodie's, and now they were trying to find the 2 other children. Officers checked the home, but all of the doors and windows were secured, and additionally, all of them were covered with blinds or curtains, preventing officers from being able to observe inside. After a search, they found that the property was unoccupied. According to police, officers then reached out to the oldest Frankie's sister. One of the children left a local place of employment by telling her supervisor that she needed to leave for a family emergency. After reviewing surveillance video from the local place of employment, it showed that one of the children was picked up by Pam Bodger. Springville officers were then heading to American Fork to speak with Bodger. They were contacted by Utah County Major Crimes detectives who were at a home in American Forks, and they told officers that both children were located. After dialogue and questioning, Bodger then explained that around noon that day she received a call from Ruby Frankie, who said that she had to leave for a family emergency and to pick up the children. According to Bodger, Ruby asked her if the 2 children could go to her house with her for a while. She told officers the request was not odd, since she had both the children over to her residence before to do housework and other chores. But Ruby is literally saying to her, can they go over to her house for a while? Can they stay with you for a while? And Pam's saying, yeah, it's completely normal. Are you saying that the kids used to be at your residence just doing chores for you for long periods of time? Because I won't lie, I'm actually imagining that this is the case, not wanting to jump to conclusions, but after hearing from Jessie that they know Pam and was basically complicit in the abuse that Jodie used to inflict on Jessie, this would not surprise me at all. And I really hope that this coverage pushes the police to do some investigating, because as we're going to find out in a minute, and as I said yesterday, news reporters have tried to reach out to Pam, and Pam basically just boards the doors up, doesn't want to speak to them. She knows stuff, she must know stuff. The two girls were informed by a DCFS worker that they were to stay with their older sister Sherry or be placed with a foster family. Initially, the two didn't want to leave Bodger's home, but were eventually placed with their older sister. I actually don't find this very strange because supposedly Sherry has not been in contact with any of her siblings, any of her younger siblings for quite a while, because Ruby quite literally took them away from the whole family, including the older siblings. And there must be a hell of a lot of brainwashing going on, just in general, that I can imagine that the kids basically brainwashed to not want to see the rest of their family. And I don't say that lightly. I say that because I'll say it again, but listening to Jesse's story, they were very much brainwashed into believing that they basically had Satan in them, that they shouldn't talk to other people, that whenever they talk to other people, they're manipulating them, and they believed that. I believe that the Frankie children must have been quite brainwashed, both Jodie and Ruby. It then says that the news basically reached out to Bodger multiple times, stopped by the home, and they were not given anything by her. I actually think, and I've said this a million times, it's because I feel like the more people talk about it, the more it might actually happen. Police really need to take note and see what exactly is going on with this lady and see where her connection to them and the children goes, because Pam basically saying that this isn't new because the kids come round and do chores and housework for me. Then she was saying this, well, it's not surprising, but were they left with you for long periods of time? Because what she told them was that Ruby said, can they stay with you for a little while, as if that was a normal thing, which is the reason why I'm saying, were those kids just like, why were they just being passed around to do chores and to clean the house and to do this and that? Once again, redirecting back to the fact that they were spotted outside of Jodie's and Ruby's pulling out weeds at record-breaking temperatures. This is just, not only is it cruel, it is highly suspicious how they're just being passed around to the whole company, basically, to sort the house out for them. I just think, just when you think this situation can't get any more horrifying, it just does. But I am just wondering as to why we've only just found out now that the other two children were with Pam. How come the police didn't report that straight away? Because I know that a lot of people were asking about it. People were getting very confused as to whether there were more children in Jodie's house or not. I just assumed that maybe they had found more children, but they just hadn't mentioned it. But I feel like we should have known this before. I don't know. Maybe that's just too much information for us to need to know. I just think that when we're talking about this case and we're talking about potentially another suspect, I say potentially because, there could be another suspect. And I feel like people, I just don't understand why we weren't told that they were found somewhere else. I get the fact that this is to do with children, 100%, respect that. But if we were told where the original two children were, why weren't we told that the other two children were with, suspect number 3, who was also attached to the company? I don't know. Maybe that's just too much information for us to know, but I'm just wondering why they're only now telling us. If they wanted to keep that private, then they would have done, Anyway, that's just my own thoughts and feelings on the whole thing. I'm going to let this one go now, but I hope you guys have a wonderful day wherever you are in this world. Take care of each other, take care of yourselves, and I'll catch up with you guys in the next video.
I've had my phone for like a day. My bedroom was taken away for 7 months and then you give it back like a couple weeks ago.
I don't think our viewers know that.
You've been sleeping on a beanbag